Humish and Rashi, the Torah portion, Chukas, we're in the fifth reading. We continue the story today. We have the passing of another great righteous individual, Aaron HaKohen, Aaron the high priest. We had Miriam a couple days ago, and now we have, all right, okay, we're at chapter 20, verse 22. Yisu Kadesh, and they traveled, they set out, they journeyed from Kadesh. Remember where Kadesh was? Anybody remember? Yeah. By Edom, they wanted to pass through Edom. Remember to go into Israel. So they're over here on the eastern side, the Jordan River. Dead Sea is over here, actually, Jordan River. Right? That's where they traveled from the Yavayu B'nai Yisrael. Koleda Hor Hahar. They came to Hor Hahar. Here it is. Further south. They went south. Right? Okay, come on. Let's stay focused on what we're learning. Okay. 22 in Rashi. Kola Eda, the entire congregation assembly. Kulam Shleimim. What does it mean, all of them? Rashi says all of them were whole. There was no decree pending against them. And they were ready to enter into the land. Because there was not a single one among them that the decree was ordained upon them. Right? Remember, the spies, we're in the 40th year, just to remember. We skipped in this, actually it was in this parsha. We went to the 40th year, right? Huh? Yeah. So we're in the 40th year. That generation passed away. Exactly. So there was no one left. So that's what Rashi's saying. Kol Eda, the entire congregation. Well, when they traveled, it was always the entire congregation. So what's the emphasis over here? To saying that all of them were complete. Because all those that were because all of those who were to die in the desert died already. And these, it says, it says that they all are alive today. That's interesting, That's a verse in Deuteronomy. And Rashi brings it over here. So it sounds it needs a little explanation over here, why he says all of that they're all alive. Okay. They're all attached. They're all connected. Okay, Horahar literally means a mountain. Mountain of the mountain. Har al gabi har. It means a mountain on top of a mountain. Ketapuach kotten al gabi tapuach gadol, like a small mound on top of a large mound. Ba'afal pisha anan, and although the cloud would go before the Jewish people, Omash ve'es hahorim, and he would level the mountains. That's what it would do. Shloish and Isharim Bahem, there were 3 mountains that would remain among them that were not leveled. Har Sinai Latera, Mount Sinai for the giving of Torah. Hor Har Lekfuras Haran, Mount Hor for the burial of Haran, which we're going now into. Har Navoy Lekfura Moshe, and the Har Navoy, which is the burial of Moshe. Wow. It's interesting, like, I guess Rashi's bothered by the fact that how could it be a mountain upon a mountain when we know that mountains were kind of leveled, if you will, by the clouds of Hashem, right? So I guess Rashi's bothered by the name of it, that it seems to be not just a mountain, but a mountain on top of a mountain, right? That's why he gives us this explanation. That's how I understand it. Okay, 23. But Yemer Hashem, and Hashem said, El Moshe to Moshe, El Aaron, and to Aaron, Bahar on this mountain. Al Gvul Eretz Edom Lemar on the border of the land of Edom. Right? It is on the border again. Here's Edom. Edom reaches and it's over here down south. So it's by the border. Rashi. Al Gvul Eretz Edom on the border. Magidus tells us Shemivnei Shenis Chabru Kan Lis Kariv LeIsav Arosha. Because they had some connection here to the wicked Esav. Why Esav? Because Edom is a descendant of Esav, right? Nifritzu Masehem, the undertakings were broken, meaning unsuccessful, and they lost this righteous one. In other words, had on the border of the Edom been stated only to teach us the location, it should have appeared in the preceding verse, where it first mentions the mountain, right? In other words, if it's about location, right? If it's about real estate, location, location, location. So in the previous verse, when you're first introducing the location, tell us where it is. So it's not coming to tell us location. It's coming to tell us something about what it's located next to. In other words, to Edom, that are wicked people. And they lost this holy, righteous person, meaning Aaron. Similarly, we see by the prophet Shaphat, through his connection to Isaiah, Hashem broke up the undertakings he made them unsuccessful. So, in other words, since we're next to this wicked one of Edom, who yesterday, if you remember, didn't let them through and, started up again, was ready to fight the Israelites. So this is, the way I'm understanding is, and others next to this negativity had a negative result, the passing of Aaron. Okay, 24. Yes, Aaron Elam. So what does God say? Gather Aaron to his people. Because he will not come to the land that I have given to the Israelites. Allah Shem Merisem. Why? Because you had Merisem. Here he translates defied.
Where you hit the rock?
Exactly. Yeah, defied, I guess. Yeah, Mamrim. They rebelled. Alpi Meriva, by the waters of Meriva, of contention, of strife. Verse 25, Kach is Aaron, take Aaron.
Wasn't it Moshe who defied?
It was both of them were punished then, if you recall. Yeah, both of them.
She doesn't even stop with that.
Yeah, because they were both. No, the verse says very clearly both of them not going to enter. If you recall previously, it doesn't say about Moshe because they were what?
Surrounding.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're not going to stop on it now because it's a lot of Chumash now, so we're not going to stop on it. We'll have to go back to it another time. Kach is Aaron v'Elazar. Take Aaron and Elazar, Benoi his son, Ha'al Isam Hor Har, and bring them up to the top of the mountain, or onto the mountain. Rashi in 25. Kach is Aaron. Take Aaron. What do you mean take him? He's a big man. He can go on his own. What do you mean take him? Rashi says, "B'dvarim nechumim," with words of consolation. Emar loy, say to him, "Ashrecha, how blessed you are." Shetirim b'seicha, kisrecha nasan levincha, because you're going to see the crown given to your son. Mashe'ena nizaka and the cow, which something I will not be granted to. Wow. How does he know? Because he wanted in Parshas Pinchas, we're going to see. I don't get this Rashi. I don't get this Rashi. Why? Because later on, he wants his sons to take over his leadership. God says, no, Yeshua's going to. So here he says, I'm not going to be able to see that giving over, but he wanted. So how does he know now that it's not going to be given to his son? I don't get that. Okay, 26. No, but then why would he want his son to take it late in 2 weeks from now? All right, Avshid is Aaron is bigodab, take off Aaron his clothing, the Ashtam, and put them on El Elazar Benai to Elazar his son. Aaron Yesav, and Aaron will be gathered, the Sham, and he will die there. Rashi in 26. As bigodab his garments, as big dekuna gedela, meaning his high priest garments, right? Because those are his garments, as opposed to the Kohen's garments, right, which is 4 garments. It's all 8 of them. They'll be shoe and dress him. Love remove them from upon him. The sitam al benai to place him upon his son. The fun of it in his presence. Amar loy Moshe told Aaron, go into the cave. There was a cave on the mountain. And he entered. He saw a bed that was made. And a lamp that was lit. Amar loy Moshe said to him, Alei lamita, go on the bed. Allah, he went on the bed. Stretch out your hands. Bashat, he stretched out his hands. Kamatz picha, close your mouth. Kamatz, he closed his mouth. Otum, shut your eyes. Otum, he shut his eyes. Miyad, and immediately, Chamad Moshe desired such a death. This is what it means when it says Kashem Aaron Achicha, that it says later on in Parshas, I think it was Vayelech, or no, about Parshas Zaysa Bracha, just as your brother had passed away. This is the death that he was longing for. Right? It's called the kiss, God's kiss of death. Okay. Interesting how Rashi explains this over here, that this is what he was longing for, when it seemingly has nothing to do with the verse over here. Why does Rashi explain it?
Can I ask you a question?
If it's only if it's relative to what we're learning specifically, because I'm sorry, only because it's a lot of learning, and we have to get through the learning. At the end, we can come back if we have time. Okay, my apologies that I'm a little kind of tough on this, just for because we have we have like
we finished. I still remember the question.
We have 20 people online that are following right now, aside from the 6-7 that are here. Okay. So just I have to keep in mind everybody. Okay, 27. The Moshe, and Moshe did Kasher Tziva Hashem, as God had commanded, the Yalu, and they went up El Har Hahor to the mountain, Leinikola Eda, to the presence of all. Wow. So this was only the command. This Rashi, the previous one, 26, is completely I don't get. This was only God commanding Moshe what to do. It's not what he did even. Now this verse says what he does, yet he explains in this verse what he did in fact. Why? We're going to see if it's going to come up. Right? It should be in verse 28, the next one. Moshe did, even though this was very difficult for him, he did not hesitate at all. Verse 28, as begun of Moshe, stripped Aaron of his clothes, and he clothed them, he dressed them upon Elazar, his son. Aaron died, Sham Beresh at the top of the mountain. Moshe Elazar minahar, and they descended Moshe and Elazar from the mountain. Seemingly here he should have explained the whole thing of how he did it. Why previously? And not only that, look what he explains it on. Bigodov, on his clothes. So there's something over here that I'm not getting. Okay. Anybody follow what my question is? Yeah, you got it? Okay. 29, the Yiru is Koleda, and they saw the entire community. Kigava Aaron, that Aaron expired. Not that he died, he expired. and they cried for Aaron 30 days. Called Beis Israel, the whole house of Israel. Rashi is going to pick up on that. What do you mean the whole house?
What's the difference between fired and died?
Let's see, Rashi. Rashi is going to say. Okay. Yiru Koleida, and the entire congregation saw Kisharo Maish Lazar Yardim, when they saw Maish and Lazar descending, Aaron Lo Yared, thank you very much. Thank you. And Aaron did not go down. He didn't go down with them. Amru, they said, Heichan Aaron. Where's Aaron? Amr Lehem, Moshe said to them, Mace, he died. Amru, they said, Efshar, is that possible that he died? Misha Amad Keneged Amala, he who stood against the angel of death, right? In this parsha, right? When he took, yeah? When they had the plague. Thank you. Right? How is it possible? If he stopped the plague, he said, can the angel of death have any dominion over here? Immediately Moshe saw compassion and he prayed, and the ministering angels showed Aaron to them, to the people, that he was on a bed. Then they saw and they believed. Wow, this is like, wow. Kol Beis Israel, the entire household of Israel, Anashi Benashi, men and women. The fish, why men and the women? Why? What's the emphasis over here? Aaron would pursue peace, and he would instill love between parties that were quarreling, between a man and his wife. Because of his that greatness, so everybody cried. Okay, now the word gava. You had a question, David. He gava because he expired, right? So Rashi picks up on this word. What does it mean he expired?
But he said he died also. He said
yes, good. Yeah, good. You're observant Jew. Observant.
Question: what's the distinction between?
Well, that's what we're going. Let's see Rashi now, right? Gava, because he had. I say that mitargim the hamis. Whoever that Targum Onkelos says because he died. Taya who? He says it's not the correct explanation. Elaim Kain, Mitargum Yiru is Chazisu. Unless the Targum Onkelos renders the word Yiru that they appeared, they became exposed. Because our sages did not say ki that the word over here ki, that it serves as because ela al midrash, except with the midrashic interpretation shenistalka anani covered that the clouds had departed upon Aaron's death. Rabbi Abu, as Rabbi Abu says, al tikre beyiru. Don't read that they saw ela beyiru, but rather the entire thing was seen, meaning they were left vulnerable. And because of that, it means because. The fishin, the sin is time because that's a reason. Why did they see? Why were they seen? Because Aaron had died. Okay. So let me explain. The word "ki" can mean because. And if you were it to mean because, so it means because he died. It means our sages explain not that they saw, they were seen. How were they seen? Because till then they weren't seen because the clouds covered them up. But now because he died, the clouds weren't covering them up and they were seen. So the word ki means because they died. That's how Onkelos explains it. But Rashi says no. Rashi says no, that's not that's what it means. But Rashi says no, it means asher. Asher means not because, but that. Shula Shemi gives us Shi'i, Shimatzinu, Im Shamash Belashin Asher, because the word Im could mean that or which. As he gives example, Arbim Farshim Lashin, Charutzim Yamav. So, in other words, it means that he expired. Not, and so it's not coming to be explanation of why they were seen. They saw rather than they were seen. Right? Because they saw, what did they see? They saw what Moshe saw. Expiring, not death. Right? They saw him expire. That's how explaining it.
May I ask one quick question? How many people did not die?
From this, we learned the idea from this. We had this by Yaakov. It doesn't say by Yaakov that he died. It also says Yigva. And there Rashi explains that he didn't die. He didn't die. So Talmud, and the Talmud says, what do you mean? See, right after that, he was embalmed, he was eulogized, he was in a coffin. Says, just like his seed is alive, so likewise he's alive, right? That his progeny is alive, following the path that he set, so he's likewise alive. So, that's perhaps we can apply this idea here too.
That's nice.
Okay.
Expired is not as final as death.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly the point. His progeny is alive, and how we see his progeny is alive. He was able to see that his son was actually wore his clothing as the high priest and took over from him, right? So he actually saw that. So in that sense, he didn't die. He expired. Right? Okay. Verse 21 of chapter 21, verse 1. Yeah, we're good, everybody? Okay. Oh boy. Okay, verse 1. V'yishma Kanani, and the Canaanites heard Melech Arad, the king of Arad. V'yishma Kanani Melech Arad. Sorry, the Canaanite king of Arad. Yoshev HaNegev, dwelling in the south, Kibo Yisrael, that the Israelites came Derech HaSorim, by route of the scouts, V'yalachim B'Yisrael, Yeshev Mimeno Shvi. And they waged a war against Israel, and took a captive from them. Took a captive. You hear that? A captive. Let's see Rashi. The Ishmael Kanani and the Canaanites heard. What did they hear? What did they hear? What do you think they heard? The Aaron died. And the clouds of glory departed from them. As it states in the tractate Rosh Hashanah. And the Amalek has always been the ones who started up with the Jews. Thank you. Verse 1, chapter 21. Mizumim v'choles, the Piranias at all times are ready for causing problems, right? The Amalekis. Yeshiv HaNegev, there is a dwelling in the south. They're Amalek. This was Amalek. It says the Canaanite king, Melech Harad. Why does it say that? Shenemar Amalek, Yeshiv HaNegev, Shina is Lashainai. Because the Amaleks, they changed their language. The Abed Lashon Canaan to speak the Canaanite language rather than their own language. They were they were Canadians, multicultural, multi-language, right? We're multi-language over here. We speak English and Yiddish. So they spoke the Canaanite language, because they knew that the Jewish people that would pray to God, let's say to give the Canaanites in their hands, and they're not Canaanites. So what happened? How come? What happened over here? So Rashi explains that the Israelites saw that their clothes, the Bushika and Malekim, was the clothes of the Amalekis, right? They were dressed more Parisian than they were dressed like Spaniards, right? If you will. Straight up, but their language, Lashkanan, was the language of Canaan. So the Parisians were trying to trick them. But not Parisians, right? The Amalek were trying to trick them with their language. Amru, therefore they said in these Palestinians, we will not specify in our language to God the nation that we wish to defeat. Shenemar, as the verse says, that deliver these people in our these people, whoever these people are, in our hands. Right, that's the following verse is going to say. We'll see it in a moment.
So they
Then-
weren't Canaanites,
They were Amalekis.
Right.
Right,
Right.
exactly. Derech HaSarim by the ways of the spies, of the scouts. Derech HaNeged by the route of the south. Sha'olchu Meraglim, that's the way the spies went. Shneimar, as the verse says, V'yalu Beneged, that they ascended from the south. Davar Acher, that's one explanation. Second explanation is Derech HaSarim, what does it mean by route of the spies? Derech HaTayar HaGodol, the great scout. And they say Lifneim, we travel before them. They're strangers Yomim, 3-day distance. Also Lehem Menucha, to search out for them a resting place. Which is, who's that great scout? The Ark of the Covenant that went before them. Yeah. And they took from them a captive, only one single slave woman they captured. Yeah. Okay. Verse number 2. Yidar Yisrael Neder Hashem. And Israel made a vow, meaning the Jewish people made a vow to God. Yomer, and they said, even Titen, if you will give, you will give. It's Amazeh, this nation. Right? Rashi just explained. Why not say the Amaleke? Do you mind putting that on? Thank you. Amazeh, they give this these people, right? Whoever these people, biyadi in our hands, v'acheramti es areihem, and we will dedicate the spoils of the cities to God. No, there's no temple. I mean, no, I get, yeah, no, yeah, not the temple, but the Mishkan, tabernacle. Yes. V'acheramti ekadish shlalom lo gavaya, that will dedicate the spoil to God Almighty. Yes, verse number 3, V'yishma Hashem b'kel Yisrael, and they heard, and God heard the voice of the Israelites, V'yiten is a Canaani, and he gave the Canaanites, V'yacharem eshem, and they destroyed them, V'sareihem, and their cities, V'yikra Shem Amokum, Charma, and they named the place Charma, which means, it has a double meaning. Charma means destruction, but also means dedication. We just learned this in Rambam, the laws of in the finishing, in the book we just finished of vows, No, yeah, of vows of of dedication and vows actually, because it's the same word. It means amen. The Hariga, they slain them. Besarehem, Charmu Gavoya, they took the dedication to on heaven. Okay, verse number 4. Beyisu Maharahor, and they traveled from the mountain Harahor, Derech Yamsu, by the way of the Sea of Reeds. These by Viseres Hedaim, to circumvent, to go around, to circle Edom. But Tiksav Nefesh Am Baderach, and the people, they became Tiktsar, they became short, Nefesh, of soul, meaning disheartened, as it translates over, because of the journey. Because of the journey, they became disheartened. Okay. Let's go further into Rashi. Number 4 in Rashi, yeah? Okay, Rashi. Derech Yamsuf, by the way of the Sea of Reeds, and since Aaron died, when this war against the Amalekites came upon them, they turned back, they turned to the opposite direction, Derech Yamsuf, to the Sea of Reeds. And this is the route they turned back. When the decree of punishment of the spies was decreed upon them, Shenemar, as the verse says, that they journeyed in the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds. And here they turned back to backwards, right? Shiba Masai, 7 journeys. Were encampments or that they encamped earlier. Shenemar, as it says, Bnei Yisrael Nasu, that they journeyed. Be'eres Bnei Yakan Maseira, from Bnei Yakan to Maseira. This is all in Deuteronomy. It's not now, but later on, when Moshe will recount, we'll see that we went back 7 destinations. Sham Meis Aaron, there he died. B'chein Meisera's Meis. Did he die in Maseira? Hala Bahara Har Meis. He died in Harahar, but later on the verse will say he died in Maseira. Kiva Maseira's Meis. Sorry, Ella Sham Chazru, but they returned, went back there to Maseira. They Sablu Olav, and there they mourned him in Maseira.
I'm a little confused. They mourned him now, or they mourned
Look,
before?
look, here's the Sea of Reeds.
Yeah.
This is Harahar, is way up here. It's way up here. Right? They went back all the way. Here's the Sea of Reeds over here by the Sinai Desert, right? They went back all the way here. Here's Maseira, all the way back here. Can you see?
Yeah.
It's a long distance that they went back.
I'm gonna have a question for you.
They went back. There, they mourned over him. They eulogized him. As if he was in his presence. That's why the verse says that he died in Moseira when he died in Harahar. But his presence was so real to them that when they came there, when they eulogized him, it was as if he was there in their presence. Say about the sorry, we're just going to learn now Rashi.
Yeah.
Okay, go and check the journeys, and you'll see. Tim says Sheva and Moshe, so find 7 journeys, Maseira, Ad Harahar, until the Mount Har.
I'm confused for one thing. They mourned Aaron where?
In Moseira.
After,
After the going back 7
but
travels.
not where he died.
Not where he died. Exactly. Exactly. These ways, it said they went around the land of Edom, because they didn't allow them to go through their land. And the spirit of the people grew short with the travels, with the hardships of the road. They became very difficult for them. And they said, before we were close to enter the land. Remember, they were further north, right? Now we went backwards the opposite direction. So did our ancestors turn around. And they languished 38 years in the desert. Until this day. That's why their spirit grew short. With the affliction of the road, of the traveling, unkrot lor. Good old French. It would be incorrect to say that that they grew short of breath, of spirit, while they were on the road. They finished by, and accordingly, the verse did not explain it with in this manner, the Makotra, with what they grew short with. Right? Because whenever you find the shortening of spirit that's mentioned in the Torah, the Torah, then the verse says why their spirit grew short. Going, for example, that my spirit grew short with them. Going, for example, Israel, that his soul grew short with the travail of the Jewish people. And whenever there's a shortening of spirit, it applies to a specific difficult thing for the person. But if the person is something that's disturbing, and he doesn't have a broad enough mind to be able to deal with the circumstance, the Kabbalah said over to accept that particular thing. In order that he be able to deal with that difficulty. About a disturbing matter, they covered it with mind. Okay. So in other words, what Rashi wants to say, it's the path itself, because if it doesn't give a reason, the verse doesn't give a reason of why they had short of spirit. But it was the travel itself, it wasn't any other thing. That's what Rashi wants to say, as opposed to in other circumstances, we see differently. Okay, verse number 5. And this people spoke against God, and against Moshe. Why did you bring us up from the desert to die in the desert, to die in the desert? Why did you take us out of Egypt to die in the desert? Because there's no bread, and there's no water. And our spirit is weary from the light. But this bread that is light. Let's see Rashi, number 5. In God, against God and Moshe, they equated the servant to the owner. Why did you bring us up? Both are equal in this statement. In other words, the complaint was directed against Moshe. They were said, why did you bring us up? But it's in plural. Halisunu. That you brought us up. When their souls were at a limit. This also is a shortening of spirit. Omius, and disgust. The insubstantial food. The fish, aman nivla. Why? Because the manna was absorbed be'ivarim in all their body parts. The karu kolkol, and therefore was insubstantial. Amru, they said, see, the manna says she's patam the main that in the future the manna is going to blow up in our innards. Klum yesh lisha. Can one be born of a woman shemachnes who ingests and does not excrete? In other words, the food became so much a part of them, right, that they didn't need to use the facilities. It became a part of them, right? You got food in front of you, right? But when do you feel satisfied? When you feel heavy, right? They never felt heavy because the food absorbed in all of them and gave them energy and gave them complete energy. They didn't like that because we want to feel, give me that Danish with the coffee at the end of the meal, because then I feel, right?
They wanted steak, not chicken.
Right?
Yeah.
Yishlach Hashem. So Hashem sent Ba'am into the people as an Achashim, the serpents. This is what we spoke about last night, by the way. And that was Sunday night's class. Serafim, the Nachashim, Hasrafim, that have a venomous bite to them, Vinashko, and they bit, is Am, the nation, Viyamas is Am Rav Israel, and they died. Many people died as a result. Rashi number 6. There's an Achashim Hasrafim, then there's snakes that are burning ones. Burning meaning shesurifim is Adam, that they burn the person by eretz shneihem, by the venom of their fangs. And they bit the people. Let the snake who is stricken who was stricken over bringing forth malicious talk, right? And he will take his due from those now that are speaking malicious talk, right? Let the snake to whom all varieties of food taste alike. And let him take his due from this ingrates. That they had something that was one thing with the kamatamim, but had many flavors to it. They were complete ingrates, is what he's saying. The and the people came El Moshe to Moshe and they said we sinned. This is what the Sikha that we spoke about Sunday and yesterday is based on. We have sinned, because we spoke against Hashem, and against you. Moshe prayed, and he took away from upon them the serpent. Moshe, and Moshe prayed ba'adam for the people. Moshe. Yeah, Moshe prayed. You can't. From here we see for anybody who was asking a request for forgiveness. He should not be cruel to forgive. Verse number 8. Hashem said to Moshe, make for yourself a saraf, a viper. Translated. See Moshe and place it upon a pole. And it will be whoever was bitten by it will look at it, he will live. Right, let's see, let's learn. Let's learn. Number 8, al nays, al kaloinas on a pole, shikar and pirkolos, per se in Old French. The chanes is giva, so we find the pole upon the hill. Aris nisi. Somebody praise my pole, and raise the pole. So the fish huga because it is tall. The riyad, canis nays, it becomes a sign. It becomes a miracle. Kol anashach, all those that are bitten. Feel even in this plague, even if it's a dog or a donkey would bite him, haya nizuk, he would suffer harm. Then it's and he gradually deteriorate to the point of death. But the bite of the snake, would quickly kill a person. That's why it says anybody who was bitten and would look at it, the alma, merely looking at it, would be cured by the bite, and the shichas nachash, but the bite of the snake, namar v'hibit, that he would have to stare. In other words, we'll see next verse. Wasn't enough that you look; you have to stare at it. If the person would stare at it, in other words, would for one bitten by the snake did not become cured quickly, unless he stared at the copper snake, bikavana, with intent. Saint Amru and our sages say, could a snake, copper made by Moshe, Mamis, could that cause death or mechaya or give life? Ella, but when the Israelites would look upward, when they would subjugate their heart to their Father in heaven, they would be cured. If not, they would waste away. Verse number 9, the final verse. And Moshe made a copper snake. God didn't say to make a copper snake. Moshe made a copper snake. And he placed it upon the pole. And it would be anybody who was bitten by the serpent, that by the snake is Ish, and he person he beat, and he stared, looked at it intently, with intention. At the silver snake, he would live. Rashi, number 9, the snake of copper, it was not told to him last week in the cheshes to make it out of copper. But Moshe said, God calls it a nachash to the snake. I will make copper. Lashon, it's expression. It's upon an expression, right? That it will, right? In others, with that very same thing, I will then bring destruction. I mean to the